This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm joined by Jeff Mayweather here at the Fury Wilder 3 Grand Arrivals. Jeff, first and foremost, how are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Obviously a big fight, you cannot beat a big heavyweight fight, Jeff, I'm sure you'll agree with that. Coming around now, trilogy bout, what are you expecting to see from both Tyson and Deontay on Saturday night?
I think that it's going to be a great fight. Like they've already done, the two fights before were very exciting, and so I think that it's going to be a great fight, and I do think that either guy can win. I mean, of course, everyone knows that Deontay Wilder only needs one punch to change the outcome. But the one thing that I don't really like is the fact that Wilder hasn't had a fight in between. Even though all this new stuff, it looks good, but when you don't use that fight, you haven't had a chance to use that in the ring on fight night. I think that once the heat starts to get, everything starts to get started, I think that you go back to the old things that you do, unless you actually did them in the ring. And so without him doing them in the ring, and I mean, it's different. Sparring is totally different from being in an actual fight. And I think that if he was in an actual fight and was able to duplicate the same things that he's showing everyone doing, what he's doing on YouTube, I think then he would have a great chance of winning this fight. But just seeing him hitting the mitts and things like that is not enough for me. So I lean slightly toward Fury, because I think Fury is technically sound, a better fighter all the way around, complete. But I do think that I think that Wilder has, of course, everybody knows Wilder has the best chance of knocking out anybody. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a great fight for the fans. And, if I had a gun put to my head, I would slightly lean toward Tyson Fury. But I think that Wilder has a great chance of winning as well.
Just stick with Wilder then. What do you make of his link up with Malik Scott?
Well, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Malik Scott, so I mean, I'm really not going to judge someone that I've never seen. But I mean, I think he has a great fighter that he's working with, and that I think that he did work. And the things that I've seen him do, he was working with Wilder on his left hand more than just his right hand. So if he can get Wilder to balance off, become a balanced fighter, gives him a much better chance to win. So, I mean, I think that he's doing a good job.
Out of the training footage you mentioned that we've seen so far of Deontay since he's been with Malik, we've seen a lot of kind of body work. Do you think that's something we should expect to see from Deontay on Saturday? Something we haven't seen in the two previous bouts against Tyson?
Yes, don't get me wrong, man, but I think that that's the reason why I say there should have been a fight in between. Because once the fight, like I said, it's okay in the beginning. He may try it, and it may work, it may not. But the one thing is this: if he would have tried it already, he would know if it works or not. But he's going in there in this big trilogy fight, this third time, and he's been trying to do something that's brand new for him, And I'm hoping that it works for him as well as it did, that it looks on YouTube. It looks phenomenal, but looks doesn't mean anything until the actual event happens. So, and I think that we all are creatures of habit, and once it get hot in that ring, he's going back to this. And I think that if he goes back to just being a one big punch to try to knock Tyson Fury out, Tyson has great defense. He has a great chin. He's going to be very tough to knock out. So I slightly lean toward him, but I still don't count Wilder out, for knocking him out. I mean, at any point, Wilder can knock you out at any point in the fight. So I think it's going to be a great fight, but it's going to be a better fight, more so for the fans than anything.
Jeff, just on Tyson, obviously in the first fight we saw him box more against Deontay. Second fight he was aggressive, he came forward and he eventually stopped him. What do you expect to see from him this time around?
I expect to see a lot of what happened in the second fight. I think also this time around, I think that Wilder, in order for Wilder to be successful, he's going to actually have to box a little bit. He's going to have to use his range, he has to use his height, and he had to stay on the outside. The last fight with Fury, it was a maul. I mean, all he did, he get in there and Tyson Fury would just put all that weight on him, and basically he tired himself out. He tired himself out fighting. You know, he got beat by strategy. He didn't get beat by technique. He got beat by strategy. And so hopefully this time around, if he fights on the outside and stays on the outside and boxes a little bit, he has a great chance of winning.
Jeff, just to move away from this fight, I'll just get your thoughts. A couple of weeks ago, another big heavyweight fight. Alexander Usyk overcame Anthony Joshua, unanimous decision win. What did you make of that fight?
Well, the one thing is that Usyk has been a great, he was one of those guys that's kind of like a freak of nature. And he showed it, on that night. And basically, he just really, in a sense, the fight wasn't thrilling. The fight itself was boring as hell. But it's all right for a fight to be boring when you fighting a guy almost twice your size. So I understand it. But he fought a great fight. And the one thing with Anthony Joshua, he got too caught up in trying to outbox Usyk, as opposed to, this guy's smarter than me. I'm gonna try to knock his head off. And I never did really see bad intentions, coming from Joshua. And I think that's what cost him the fight.
Do you think that's what we need to see in the rematch? Anthony Joshua needs to bring bad intentions effectively, needs to be aggressive against Alexander Usyk?
Yes, I think that okay, like the first fight when he lost to Ruiz. When he lost to Ruiz, he needed to box. That's what he did. This time around, it's the complete opposite. He don't need to box. He needs to be the big man and go in there and try to knock his head off.
Final thing, Jeff. Last time we spoke, it was just before Manny Pacquiao's final ever bout with Usyk, or what we seem to believe will be his final bout. Just want to get your thoughts on his performance on that night and just what has been a remarkable career for Manny.
Well, don't get me wrong. He just got old. He got old overnight. I ain't gonna say overnight. Over time. He's a great fighter. You can't take nothing away from him. One of the best fighters to ever put on a pair of gloves. And has a great legacy. And I think that now is the right time for him to move on to the politics of his, of where is it? Philippines. Yeah, I think that's what he should be doing now. And no more boxing.
Jeff, it's a pleasure as always. Thank you.
All right, thank you.